All right, looks like we are live.
We're good.
So I will officially call the meeting to order and start with announcements. First is checks over $25,000. There were two. First is to Those Guys Landscaping, multiple projects around the village, and that's for capital and general fund, from the capital and general funds both. And that was for $25,422.50. And we also had one for Pacific Trans Global Construction Corp., part of the Clock Tower and Library Skylight projects from the capital fund. That was for $57,467.30. The other announcement is to call a public hearing to consider a local law amending zoning code with respect to development of multifamily office district for Monday, September 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Marianne, did you want to outline that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I'll tell you what the amendments are about. What happened was as you know, the MFO district was created without a particular project in mind, without a particular application in mind. The board just knew, what they wanted, and it was, generally multifamily housing. When it came to applying the bulk regulations to actual project, there's a couple of issues that arose that either the board didn't anticipate or it did anticipate, but they're not quite covered by the zoning regulations the way they read now. So there's, even though it's two sections, there's essentially four changes, and I'll go through each of them. The first has to do with how you calculate site capacity. And the site capacity regulations were incorporated in the code in 1989, and they were drafted with single family houses in mind, not multifamily developments. So one of the things they provide that in determining gross site area, which will be the basis of how many units can be there, you subtract roads, but you don't subtract the area on which driveways are being built. And so the question is, when you've got a road to a big building, is that a road or a driveway? I think it's only come up a couple of times for multifamily buildings, but it's the driveway to the building has been treated as a driveway, and thus not the area not subtracted from the area that you've got to work with. But anyway, it's a little unclear. It's clear as to one family, not clear as to multifamily. And so there's really no provision for driveways leading to multifamily buildings. So what the First Amendment in the proposed local law does is provide, I'll read it, in calculating the base site area in the MFO district, the land on which any driveway is to be built that leads directly to a 3 or more family dwelling or parking area serving the dwelling shall not be deducted from gross site area. So that's the first one. That's part of section 1. And then the second change has to do with improvements to Strawberry Lane. The regulations require that any development that'll have either its access or egress on Strawberry Lane has to improve Strawberry Lane from Broadway to that access or egress point. And the board didn't want to penalize the property owner for making improvements that might end up on his or her property. So you put in a provision that said the lot area required for any necessary improvements you put in something that says that area for improving Strawberry Lane does not get deducted from, does not count as coverage, does not count as lot coverage or building coverage. I think the intent, I know the intent was also that it wouldn't count against your site capacity either, but that language was not put in there. So the second part of section 1 adds this: the lot area required for any necessary improvements of Strawberry Lane shall not be subtracted from the net buildable site area for purposes of determining building and lot coverage. If anybody's reading along, not from the board, because you got the updated copy, the draft that was attached to the agenda was a previous draft. this change, I just sent to Karen, I just sent over to Karen late this afternoon. So she's gonna post this, and this will be the one that'll be posted with the agenda for the next meeting. But that's the draft you should work from, rather than and it's dated August 14th. Work from the August 14th draft. Okay, so then the third part of the amendment, which is the section 2 of it, changes how height is measured in the MFO district. Right now, under the Irvington Code, which is kind of unusual, height is measured from the lowest, if there's a building, from the lowest point of the building to the highest point. And it doesn't matter if, you know, the lot is sloped or whatever, it's pretty much from the lowest point to the highest point. It's an unusual measurement provision. And it generally works for single family houses. For multifamily buildings, though, which are much bigger, it doesn't work if the building's on a slope. And that's easiest to see by the sketch that's part of the lot. You see, if you measured from the lowest to the highest, a building would, because it runs a long length, would be way higher than whether the limit's 25 feet or 35 feet. So what this amendment provides is that the height shall be measured at the periphery of the building where the building meets grade. At any given point where the building meets grade, the height shall be measured from the lowest of either the finished grade or the grade prior to construction. That's how we do it now. To the highest point of the building. The height shall be measured vertically from the measuring point to an imaginary point located at the allowed number of feet, whether it's 25 or 35 feet above the measuring point. I know that's really hard to understand in words, which is why I also included a diagram in the local law. And I think the diagram explains that pretty much, so that any point the building as it goes up a hill. This is only relevant where a long building is on a hill. It's not going to be relevant if it were all, like if it were down at the waterfront, you know, it's all flat there. So it's going to be 35 feet at whatever point. But this one, you go up a hill. And it also, because remember, the height is measured from the lowest point to the highest point. Now, you also, the code provides for underground parking and actually gives a bit of an incentive for underground parking. Now, there's going to be a much lower point underground to access the parking, and you don't want that to be the low point that you measure from. So a provision was added that at grade driveways for accessing underground parking shall not be included when measuring building height, provided that the driveway is 30 feet and less, or the minimum width necessary. And it tells you how to measure that, because you don't want a huge area, you know, then it would be an exception that swallows the whole, but it means you don't measure from down there. I know that's really confusing, and it's probably easier to actually look at the local law and look at the diagram, mainly for the height thing. The height one is a little confusing if you don't look at the diagram, but that's an end. Okay.
Marianne, I had one question for you. In section 5, the following section, the sentence, at any given point where the building meets grade, the height shall be measured from the lowest elevation of either the finished grade or the grade prior to construction, comma, filling or grading. Does that comma, is that supposed to be there? That doesn't seem right.
Prior to construction, filling or grading, yeah, because yes, that is correct.
The comma, because to me,
yeah, the grade prior to any construction, any filling, any grading. Okay. And I believe that's also the language that's in the code now, otherwise, for measuring height for the measuring point.
Okay, so, fine. Right. That's so you got a 3-item list. I wasn't reading it as that.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I will make a motion to schedule a public hearing to consider a local law amending the zoning code with respect to development of multifamily office district for Monday, September 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. If I can get a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we have correspondence, of which we have two. The first was from Catherine Lark. I'm one of the co-managers of the Irvington Girl Scouts and co-leader of my daughter's 8th grade cadet troop. Earlier this year, a number of girls in our troop and other Irvington Girl Scout troop leaders worked with CJ Riley III on a Girl Scout field day and a camp out at the O'Hara Nature Center. Almost 50 Girl Scouts and more than 30 women attended, and more than 60 people camping overnight in tents. I'm writing this letter to know how grateful we are to CJ and the Recreation Department for making the Girl Scout Day happen for us. Girl Scout Day was a true community event and was amazing. The cadets led the younger scouts through the activities, demonstrating confidence and leadership. The feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, with parents signing up to become leaders and additional troops being formed. I'm including links to the articles. I think the big takeaway was, what a great job. CJ is helping develop good citizens in Irvington, which is pretty remarkable. I would just say that this letter kind of piles on with all the positive praise for CJ Riley and the Nature Center in general. But, I think it was a building before, and CJ Riley's made it a special place. I think he has a great passion and love of the area as well as nature. Joe Archino and the rec department obviously support his work, and it's been really great to see the Nature Center kind of develop into this destination for people. And I think when they find themselves there and they interact with CJ, it makes it even more special for them. So, it's just been great to have CJ around. And I thank Ms. Lark for reaching out and letting us know once again what a treasure CJ is. The next one is from the Rivertown Chamber of Commerce. They're excited to announce that the Rivertown Public Market Taste Local will be held November 5th from noon to 3 p.m. The goal is to bring the community together in celebration of small businesses in Ardsley, Dobbs Ferry, Hastings, and Irvington. Residents and visitors will stroll our downtown streets to take in all that Rivertown's have to offer. And they're going to ask the restaurants to offer destination-worthy snacks and treats. Non-food related businesses can draw shoppers by offering activities or specials. And they go on to kind of highlight the events of the day. And they are basically looking for our support, both in spirit and I think potentially monetarily. Actually, we've been some discussion with the other mayors from the mentioned villages about what we'd like to do as a group. So if anybody has any questions or comments on this, overall, I think we're all very supportive of the idea. It should be a great day in the Rivertowns. What makes sense? They're going to have trolleys going between the villages. So I think they're looking to offset some of that cost. So I think that's what the main discussion is. I think everyone's in support of it, as I said, but monetarily, how much makes sense is what we'll figure out. In the past, we have not, it appears, actually paid for the trolleys when we had them in the past. I think it would be something new if we did that. But if anyone has any questions or thoughts, feel free to share them. Otherwise, I will keep you in the loop when we discuss this. I just actually emailed the mayors back today, told them we were going to bring this up tonight. And we had talked about it last week or via email, but we hadn't come to any conclusions. So.
Now, my comment would be, I think it's a great idea. I think it's great piggybacking it on the Rivertown Arts, which I believe is scheduled on the same day or over that weekend. Do we have an Irvington representative to the Chamber of Commerce? My only, comment would be that it would be nice to have all the Irvington stores participate. And I think in the past, that's been something that's been a little bit difficult. I'd love to have I'd like to go to other villages, but I'd also like to have other villages come to us and, make an investment worthwhile.
Yeah, but I know we definitely have a representative. It's no longer Janet Kovacs. I forget who it is now. She actually told me that it's slipping my mind, but I agree with you. I think one of the problems is that a lot of the local stores are not members of the chamber. I don't think that's going to preclude them from participating, but it's just kind of a strange situation when things are organized by the chamber, and then a lot of the chamber members are insurance companies from White Plains or whatever. But I guess I'll ask Janet again who the representative was and reach out to them as well and see what feedback they've gotten from, if any, from our local businesses. Otherwise, again, I'll keep you guys up. Next up is public comment. I don't see any public comment right now. So why don't I move on to the consent agenda? If someone's figuring out how to raise their hand. Anyone have any questions, comments on the consent agenda? Otherwise, I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda. If I can have a second. All in favor? Aye. Next, I will make a motion to open public hearing and consider a local law amending chapter 15 peddling and 155 peddling and 114 fees of the Irvington Code. If I can have a second. All in favor? Aye. So this is one of the less controversial rules we've had. I think the origin of it is Larry Lonke. I wanted to see if we could update the term peddling from the historical archives to see what we can maybe change it to. I guess you thought there's a slightly negative connotation to peddling, Larry. But Mary Ann did some research and we have some proposed changes. I don't know if you want to go over them, Mary Ann.
Now, I'll go through the changes. My research was that we are really going to be cutting edge here because virtually every other municipality in the state calls them peddlers. But we did. I think it was Arlene's suggestion, or maybe it was a combination suggesting that we call them mobile vendors instead. So all this law does is change throughout wherever peddling is referred to either mobile vending or mobile vendor. But this really those are the only changes.
Any questions? Otherwise, I'll open it up to the public for any comments. I don't think we received any correspondence, Larry.
Not at all.
From the Peddlers Association of America. So if there's no comments, I will make a motion to close the public hearing. If I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Resolved to adopt a local law amending chapters 155 peddling, or now mobile vending, and 114 fees of the Irvington Code. I will make a motion. If I can have a second.
Well, I'll second that as well.
All in favor? Aye. Making changes.
Wants to be known as the Larry Lonke law, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Next up is authorizing third-party plan review and inspection for residential and commercial buildings for the village of Irvington. Larry, do you want to give us some context here?
Yeah. So at the last meeting, I believe you had a grant application that was authorized, not an application, but actual grant agreement with NYSERDA. And part of that grant agreement related to a pilot program that NYSERDA is implementing to try to gather information about utilizing third-party inspection review, plan review, specifically for energy code compliance on building department submissions. So this is authorizing applicants to submit plans that have been reviewed by a third-party reviewer from a list of pre-approved reviewers is the way I understand it. Although that list isn't available yet, so we'll probably be creating one on our own. And they want to get feedback on how well the reviews are being done, if it speeds up the process in any way, if the submissions are more complete than they have been in the past with respect to energy code compliance and New York stretch code that you've adopted. So it's an interesting pilot. It actually unlocks $75,000 worth of funding to support this, which is a nice size grant for this type of a program for the village. So that's it. This is the resolution that's necessary to allow for third-party inspection plan reviews to happen, and then we'll move on to the next step.
So can I ask, that funding will defray the cost to the homeowner for having the third-party review done, or is this going to be an additional fee that the homeowner will be paying over and above what they've been paying in the past?
The resolution is structured, and this is a model resolution from NYSERDA that the inspection, the plan review is arranged for between the applicant and the consultant. So I think that means payment as well. So we'll have to see how that actually gets implemented. But that's,
So before this, would the building department be doing the review of the energy audit? That
Yes.
it's now going to be done by a third party? And would
Yes.
that be part of permitting
it would be
already?
It would be part of the permitting process, but we'll have to see whether there's a component that we can eliminate or adjust, to try to equalize this out, because
Right. I would have a problem if it's
Yeah.
going to add to additional
Yeah.
cost.
Yeah,
Well-
our goal is to not have it add to cost for the applicant.
Not just additional cost, but additional time. I mean, is
Right.
this replacing the entire process or just looking at the energy compliance?
Just the energy code compliance portion of it. So the goal,
It looks like
The
it's adding
stated-
cost and time to everything.
I'm sorry?
It sure seems like it's going to add a cost because you have to pay for the consultant, and it's going to add time because you have to do that and then filter into the normal building, normal planning board process.
Right, but I think the goal of this pilot is for NYSERDA to measure whether it in fact speeds up the process, which is what they believe will happen, because the plans will come in more compliant with the codes at the first shot, as opposed to, going back and forth with applicants on
Well,
this.
compliant to which code? The state energy code or
Yeah.
the village building code?
No, but state energy code and New York stretch. Those are the only two aspects this relates to.
Right. I'm, I don't know. I don't know if I was aware that the extra thread beads were going to be put on the necklace, so to speak. I'm a little bit concerned about this. I'm concerned that we're voting on something we don't know the time impact or the cost impact. And for one, we already know the village residents feel they're suffering from expensive review process and lengthy review process. So this concerns me a lot. I feel like we shouldn't be voting on this until we actually know the answers to these questions.
Okay.
I agree with Mark.
Okay. Let's table this then, and we'll, I guess, work with the building department to figure out how this would affect the process. So I will move on.
Thank you. I think that's a smart thing to do because we can't go in and have no clue about what the actual impacts are going to be.
I don't think there's any super time constraint on this, right, Larry?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Very good. Next up is authorizing third-party plan. Oh, no, it's not. It's approval of consulting agreement 2022-16 with the Dog Park Concepts and Consulting, Inc.
So this is a contract for the design work for the dog park project that I think that the board approved as part of the capital budget, just for the design portion of the project, obviously not construction or anything like that. So that's it.
The only thing that concerned me about this was the writing, the way the Exhibit A, Attachment A was written. It provided a range of services, but it didn't seem to give, unless I misread it, it didn't seem to give a specific deliverable. If you read the appendix, the exhibit, you'll see that it says, this is the range of stuff we do, and this is our price, but I didn't see where it said the outcome.
But I do think that Joe has been working with them. So
Yeah, well, we'll make sure we write into it the exact deliverable, which is a construction plan.
Right. I think that's what I was looking for that. I mean,
Sure.
all the other services are great if needed, but what we don't want to have to do is come back and supply more money to finish the construction plan when
Yep.
this should be the outcome of the contract.
Okay. So resolved to approve the consultant agreement as amended with Dog Park Concepts and Consulting, Inc. for consulting services relating to the dog park project. The amount not to exceed $6,000, authorize the village administrator to execute said agreement. I'll make a motion if I can have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is approval of consultant agreement with McLaren Engineering and Land Survey PC.
So similar to the last one, this is a project that the board was looking for the design to be completed on. And we've met several times with McLaren. They're fairly specialized in construction of stages, if you can believe that. So they actually have people that are in the theatrical area and are familiar with this. Obviously, there's challenges in terms of building at this particular location, but that's been accounted for as part of this agreement. So this is the first stage of this. There's more to the design work than just this initial lump sum, which is the $64,200. But the initial design work and some of the geotechnical work has to be done first to understand better what the level of construction work is going to take to complete this project. So there's more to it than this, but this is the initial work to get going on this.
Yeah, I think too, both Joe and Joe Archino from the rec and Greg Allen from the theater were, very impressed with this firm as well as their work. I think they are kind of the kind of preeminent group that does this type of stuff. I don't know if there's too many others, but they have a very good reputation.
So, I mean, I feel like I got to say the obvious, which is I'm very concerned about the stage being located in that position and the design to take into account not just current flood stage levels, which are about 3 feet or so, but also projection on Hudson River rise itself, and that on top of 100-year flood projections. So I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with the 3-foot number for the stage itself. I know they're talking about I read where they made a comment that they would raise up the columns above the flood level with whatever kinds of underpinnings. But I guess my concern is that, and it seemed to read as if the village was responsible for providing a bunch of information to them. And some of it seemed topography and this and that and the other thing. And some of it seemed to leave open the question of what exactly are we requiring in terms of building for expected well, it's essentially sea level rise, but Hudson level rise in that area, and the on top of the flood projections. So where it gets sticky is if you go to something like Scenic Hudson and see their Hudson River sea level rise, et cetera, and flood map interactive, you can see that within the time frame of, let's say, 20 years, the projected rise of the Hudson sea level could be essentially anywhere from 30 to 36 inches. So that's well within the lifespan of this construction. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, and you look out further and, worst case conditions get quite a bit worse. And that's not including flood conditions. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that we got to be really careful here and, ensure that we're providing the right numbers or the right numbers are being used, not really just that we're kind of lowballing it, because I think that everyone who's been watching the news lately has been seeing the reports that glacier melting on Greenland and in central Antarctica has been skyrocketing at rates much higher than projected. So that just means that sea level rise is going to be at the high end and faster. So if we're building something for a 10-year time frame, that's one thing, but I believe we're building something for maybe a 40-year time frame. Maybe I'm missing the expected time frame or length of use of this product, the stage. So even if you say it's not 40 but 30 years, we're still talking about significant impacts from the sea level rise. And I don't see that exactly committed to in the contract. It does say that they'll design for flood conditions and stuff, but it doesn't really give metrics. And I'm not sure where those metrics are coming from.
what they're designing for is, and all they're speaking to in the contract is an acknowledgement that it will be subject to flooding in this location. And the issue, and we haven't settled the issue because they haven't started their work, is how that flooding is dealt with. I mean, if you're putting a building in that, you know, you want to be resilient to sea level rise, that's one type of construction. If you're putting a stage in, there's a cost benefit to making it either resilient or able to kind of go with the flow in terms of flooding. You know, this is not it's a permanent structure, but it's different than a building. So you can locate certain sensitive and expensive equipment above certain levels, but the structure itself, you know, there's a high cost to making it completely resilient to any flooding at all. And I don't think that's the standard that we're building to here.
Well, I don't think you can anyways, but you know,
Exactly.
you also, because you're in a flood zone of the Hudson, you have to allow for free flow of flood waters. So you can't have a structure that's like a solid building. I mean, that's
And
why a lot of places where there's flood zones, buildings have, you know, are built up. There's open garages on the first level and so forth. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's happening here, but yes, even those structures that are going to be, I mean, the most important things are any kind of electrical or electronic wiring and systems have to be above the flood zone, obviously. Otherwise, you know, you have the problem that happened at Bridge Street in the past, where all their electrical systems got flooded out. So we really don't want this to be a problem where it becomes significant rework every time a flood occurs.
Right.
Wouldn't the park be impacted though? In other words, if there was a huge flood in the park, you know, forgetting the stage, the park itself would have massive damage and require a lot of funds probably to restore it.
Which is what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
Not the entire park, but if you look at what's in the flood projections from Scenic Hudson, essentially in the future, given a mid-range projection of sea level rise within the next 20 to 30 years, basically almost all of Madison Park becomes flood zone, which it is not right now.
Yeah, I know at least on the electrical part, that's the one thing that they talked about, you know, at length, that it has to be, you know, much higher than just, you know, kind of the 3 feet or something. But I think that's kind of a known issue. So I'm confident they can deal with that. And I think the building itself will be kind of flood resistant. Nothing's flood proof, but as you say, it's kind of, you know, nothing on the lower level will be, you know, it'll be kind of like, you know, concrete or something that it kind of flows through, but doesn't destroy it or whatever. So.
Right, as long as we're not using the bottom of the stage, under the stage as storage, would be okay.
Yeah. Only for floaties. We're okay to go forward?
Yeah, I just needed to make that comment.
No, definitely. And I know Joe's listening and I know he gets it on the flooding parts as he's dealt with it a lot. So. Resolved to approve the consulting agreement with McLaren Engineering and Land Surveying PC for consulting services relating to the Matheson Park Stage project for an amount not to exceed $64,200 and authorize the village administrator to execute said agreement, subject to the final review of the village attorney. I'll make the motion if I can have a second. All in favor? Aye. Next up is authorization to participate in New York Class Cooperative Investment Program. Brenda, Larry?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. What this is, it's a product that I believe the village participated in way in the past. So it's not entirely new for the village, but it's a product that will give us a higher yield on a liquid product. So New York Class, it stands for New York Cooperative Liquid Asset Security System, and it's a short-term liquid investment. And it's geared for and made for the public sector. And as you're well aware, the interest rates have been increasing. We had 2 interest rates hikes already this year, and they anticipate 2 more. So this would exceed many of the CDs that we could have taken out. So we're going to wait for a higher CD, and in the meantime, use this product for our liquid money. It's already paying at least 2%. So that's a excellent rate for a liquid product. So it adheres to all requirements by the state comptroller and also our own investment policy.
Can I ask if there was any reason why we stopped using it from having used it in the past?
Yeah, I think it's just because interest rates were so low for so long, we were getting, it almost was non-existent interest rate. So we kept it liquid with our bank like Chase Manhattan, or maybe we didn't have enough money at some points to really diversify very much with cash flow. And then right now, I mean, even looking back to December, February, and March, CDs then were paying like a 0.25, and we're getting less than that in money markets, in our municipal money markets. So now with the 2 rate increases, at least we have an opportunity to really earn some money on our fund balance. We have a lot more money now than we've had in the past.
It is
So
kind of
I'm
a
going
good-
to chime in for anything else, Larry.
Yeah, no, and I can tell you historically, so the predecessor to this particular program was a program that was started by MBIA. And MBIA had some difficulties during the financial crisis, had nothing to do with the way this program was structured. But the program basically morphed into being run separate from MBIA, which is a good thing actually in the long run. When that morphing took place, we never re-signed up with kind of the new program, so to speak. So while we did participate with it in the past, we didn't participate in this particular iteration of it. But we do have experience with this type of cooperative investing, and it worked out well back into the 90s when I was treasurer. But like I said, it kind of transitioned away from MBIA over to this program here. And I think it's helpful to have another avenue to look at, rather than just the ability to invest in treasury securities, which is primarily what this invests in. Treasury securities aren't liquid. I mean, they are liquid, but they're subject to market fluctuations. So this program does that investing on a cooperative basis, but still allows us to move funds in and out on a liquid basis.
And right, and with the environment of 2 more rate increases, we don't want to necessarily lock into a CD
Right.
when we know we're having a rate increase, for 2
Right.
before the end
But
of
it
the
seems
year.
like a particularly good investment now where there's increases coming, have happened, and it will continue at least in the near future.
Mhm.
Thanks, guys.
Anything else? Otherwise, whereas the Village of Irvington investment policy authorizes the participation in a cooperative investment program with other authorized governmental entity pursuant to Article 5G of the General Municipal Law, where such program meets all the requirements set forth in the Office of the State Comptroller, and specific program has been authorized by the Board of Trustees. Whereas the Village of Irvington wishes to invest portions of its available investment funds in cooperation with other corporations and/or districts pursuant to a NICLAS Municipal Cooperative Agreement amended and restated as of March 28, 2019. Resolve the clerk treasurer is hereby authorized to participate in NICLAS program under the terms of the NICLAS Municipal Cooperation Agreement amended and restated as of March 28th, 2019. I'll make a motion if I can have a second. All in favor? Aye. Next up is appointment of a Parks groundskeeper in the Recreation and Parks Department. Larry, do you want to go over anything here?
Yeah, so this vacancy is as a result of Scott Brennan's retirement / resignation. And the Parks groundskeeper position is a position that is covered by the CSEA union. And as a result, based upon their union contract, the position needs to be offered to existing members of the union first. And if there are qualified applicants for the position, they are entitled, to take that position on. So we did have one applicant from the CSEA, Christopher DiNardo, and he's being recommended for appointment starting tomorrow to this position.
My comment would be, from my understanding, that this is a good example of great cooperation between DPW and the rec department. I know that there was a lot of goodwill in terms of a transfer of an employee.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, anything's a challenge when people get moved around, but you know, Chris is entitled and is, you know, obviously qualified for the position. So we're gonna make that all work.
And obviously, it's unfortunate that, you know, that Scotty Brennan is no longer working with us, but it's nice to have, you know, someone in the house that's qualified and wanted it, so.
Yep.
So resolved to appoint Christopher DiNardo to the position of park groundskeeper at an annual salary of $77,813 effective August 16, 2022, subject to completion of probationary period of not less than 12 weeks and not more than 52 weeks. I'll make the motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is appointment of motor vehicle equipment operators in the Department of Public Works.
So similar to the last conversation, the one position is made vacant by Chris DiNardo's moving from the DPW side over to the park side. And in this instance, there were no qualified drivers, motor equipment operators within the DPW to take this on. In order to be a motor equipment operator, you need to have a certain license, CDL, commercial license, and obviously have the capability of driving large trucks. So there aren't any in our department at this time. So the word was put out, and we sent a job announcement to a number of different locations, including the local colleges, as well as some of the driving schools, as well as word of mouth as best we could about this position. And we had several qualified applicants. We had several applicants who didn't have the license, but could be potential future qualified applicants for openings in the DPW as they come up. In this instance, we also have another employee who is expected and is, 100% certain retiring in the middle of October. He is also capable of driving, and the DPW, since they did have two very good qualified candidates, they've asked to have both appointed at this time. One of them will overlap with the soon to be retired employee, which will be a very helpful thing. They do come in at a lower salary than the person who's retiring, so the money works out fine. And so those are the two that are on the agenda tonight. Both are highly recommended and highly qualified after going through not just an interview, but also, a driving test and, some real on the road experience. So very happy to bring on two qualified candidates, if you agree.
I think it makes sense to me, so. I resolve to appoint Jason Meebane to the position of motor equipment operator at an annual salary of $59,319 effective August 29, 2022, subject to completion of probationary period of not less than 12 weeks and not more than 52 weeks. And further resolve to appoint Richard Garland to the position of motor equipment operator at the annual salary of $59,319 effective September 6, 2022. Subject to completion of probationary period of not less than 12 weeks and not more than 52 weeks. I'll make the motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Good. Carried. Next up is authorization to sign legal documents for a New York State grant for the Matheson Park Stage project. Do you want to quickly go over this one, Larry?
Yes. So the design work that you just approved in a previous resolution, we have been offered a $25,000 grant. I know that number is not listed in this resolution, but it's a $25,000 grant to help offset the design work for the stage in Matheson Park. And so there's a number of documents that I'll be signing in order to complete this grant agreement, and the resolution in here authorizes me to do so.
And this is from State Legislator Tom Abenanti's office, Larry. So
That's correct. Yes.
thank you, Tom, for thinking of us on this project. I know we reached out to, I guess, you and me, Larry, and this was kind of made sense that we had something right away. So thank you, Tom, for that. Whereas this organization has received a legislative initiative grant in the New York State budget, and whereas there are specific requirements and regulations governing the expenditure in those funds. Now, therefore, this body resolves the following. Number one, administration of all funds under this grant shall be in accordance with all terms and conditions contained in the guidelines for non-construction projects 50,000 and under, July 2022, by the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. Two, that Larry Schaffler, as the village administrator of our organization, is hereby authorized to sign legal documents on behalf of our organization, and such signature is acknowledgement of the acceptance by this body of compliance with all terms and conditions of the master contract for grants contract number T22T912 to be executed for the grant. I'll make a motion if I can have a second. All in favor? Aye, we're good. And Larry, I assume you know all the terms and conditions and the guidelines.
And if there's any I need to review with the village attorney, I will, but it's pretty straightforward for a small grant like this.
Yeah, I assume so. Standard workday and reporting resolution for elected and appointed officials. You or Brenda want to explain this one?
Sure.
It's pretty straightforward, but
Right. This has to be adopted by a board resolution, and what it does is it establishes the workday and the amount of time that's reported each month for our trustees that are elected to be in the retirement system. And it was based on a log that was kept for 3 months, citing the amount of work or time put in on a typical 3-month period. So, and it's a requirement for elected and appointed officials who do not work a regular schedule and do not participate in a regular timekeeping method. So was that clear? Yeah, so each month, this is the amount of service credit that will be reported for our trustee Burgos and trustee Bard. It needs to be posted after this for 30 days for the public. And it'll be the basis for the reporting, the monthly reporting to the retirement system.
all right. Yeah, I think this was, I don't know, maybe it was about 10 years ago they did something like this.
The last one was about 10 years ago, yes, or more, true. It was trustee Gilberti, right.
There you go. Whereas in accordance with New York State Regulation 315.4, requiring employers to submit a standard workday and reporting resolution establishing standard workdays for elected and appointed officials who participate in New York State local employees retirement system. Be it resolved that the Village of Irvington hereby establish the following standard workdays based on the record of activities maintained and submitted by these officials. Trustee Arlene Burgos, 7-day standard work week, term of office 12/21 to 12/23. No participation in the timekeeping and 1.71 days per month. And for trustee Mitchell Bard, everything else is the same. Sick days reported is 2.72 a month. So I will make a motion if I can get a second.
I just want to know if there's a typo. My last name is B-A-R-D, not B-A-R-D-S.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Just saw
okay.
that. Yeah, I made a note of
Thank you.
that. Sorry about that.
No problem.
And a question I have, with just a procedural question, does
You probably shouldn't vote,
trustee
right?
Bard doesn't vote on this? I take it, right?
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
The Bards can. Yeah, so it carries 3-0. Luckily we have,
I don't think you didn't.
We have a
get to the
quorum.
second.
can take.
Happy to second. I'll second.
And all in favor that aren't Mitchell Bard or Bards?
Got it.
Yeah.
Ryan Smith. Okay.
All right. Next up is bond resolution to finance the cost of acquiring a records management system for the village. So you want me to read these? We have to do these one at a time, right, Larry? Is that right?
Yeah, they should be done separately. The bond resolutions are obviously very lengthy.
Yep.
You have a
I got my
summary
cheat
of-
sheet.
Yeah, you have a summary of those resolutions and, but they should be voted on separately as you go along. But basically, these are the bond resolutions that are necessary to implement the first year or 2022 of the capital budget that you approved at the last meeting. Obviously, as we discussed at length, this does not include any aspect of the firehouse project. design or otherwise. That will be decided on at a future date, if it happens. But these are the other projects that we reviewed during that capital budget process.
Let me just also add that the resolutions are in order of the years of usefulness. So the first one is for 5 years, followed by for a 10-year usefulness, followed by 15-year, and lastly a 40-year for our water systems.
And
So
the year,
that's how they're put together.
right. Thanks, Brenda. And the years of usefulness are not something that we decide. These are laid out in local finance law. Very specifically, if it's a certain type of vehicle, for example, it fits into a 5-year category. If it's a building or a piece of equipment, it might be a 10-year category. These are all well-defined in local finance law. So we rely on our bond counsel to advise us on the number of years here. It's not really discretionary.
And the total of the all 4 bonds would be the $1,485,000 that was approved in the capital budget.
So I guess I'll start with the cheat sheet you provided, Brenda, for the first one, which is for the police records management system, which is $200,000. Motion to approve a bond resolution dated August 15, 2022, authorizing the issuance of up to $200,000 of serial bonds with a maximum maturity of up to 5 years. I'll make a motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The next one is covering the senior center HVAC supplement for $200,000, computer hardware upgrade of $100,000, and sidewalk repairs of $100,000. Motion to approve a bond resolution dated August 15, 2022, authorizing the issuance of up to $400,000 of serial bonds with a maximum maturity of 10 years. I'll make the motion if I can have a second.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Now we're getting some momentum. The next one is for the Madison Park stage design of up to $175,000, a back truck of up to $450,000, the South Astor Street pull off for traffic flow of $200,000. These are all 15 years. Motion to approve a bond resolution dated August 15, 2022, authorizing the issuance of up to $825,000 of serial bonds with a maximum maturity of 15 years. I will make a motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And the last one is the Mountain Road Water Tank Emergency Power project for $60,000. Motion to approve a bond resolution dated August 15, 2022, authorizing the issuance of up to $60,000 of serial bonds with a maximum maturity of, is this 40?
40
20
years.
20 or 40?
It's 40.
40, okay. Of 40 years.
Mhm.
I'll make the motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Now we're up to reports of boards, standing committees, and officers. Trustee liaison reports. Who's top of my list? Larry Lonke's top of my list.
Let's see.
1 second so I can pull this up.
Sure. Nobody come back, or you? Looks like you got it.
Got it.
Excellent.
So another successful little camp summer. Both Teenscape and the day camp ended their summers on August 5th. A great season. Over 250 campers participated in camps. Special thanks to Mike DiNardo, Angela Thornton, Nicole O'Neill, and Maureen DePauli. There have been additional bear sightings in the Irvington Woods Park and the surrounding areas. Everyone is asked to use caution and to make sure they keep their dogs on leash at all times. Just a reminder that permits are needed, one, for any group of 13 or more in any village park. Permits are also required for tennis, and you can do that online, and you can also sign up for any of the new recreation department programs online. The staff is putting together a variety of fall programs, and they're happy to announce the return of the Halloween window painting, which it's been a while since that's gone on, and I remember it fondly with my kids. Rocktoberfest, I'll let Brian talk a little more about that when he has a chance, but it's scheduled for Saturday, September 24th at noon, and it'll run through the evening. It's a special Rocktoberfest, including a celebration of the 150th anniversary of our village. Food trucks, kids inflatables, live music, and much more, including a fireworks display. And the annual 9/11 ceremony will be held on Sunday, September 11th, 8:45 in scenic Hudson Park. And lastly, this summer, 19 teens were in the new O'Hara Nature Center Teen Volunteer Program. The participants worked on various projects in the Irvington Woods Park. Some of the work included maintaining the Peter Oley trails, monitoring of cameras designed to record wildlife in the woods, helping with tasks connected to the Cornell University study, and maintaining the educational gardens. A great new program, and again, just another thing going on with CJ, Peter Strom, and the O'Hara Nature Center. That's it, thanks.
Excellent. Mark Gilliland?
Not too much going on. I think I mentioned last time, but I'll mention again. The tree commission is working on a tree code update after, I don't know how long it's been, at least 10 years since the last. We've incorporated a lot of notes based on our experience over the last 10 years. So at some point I'll be presenting that to you guys as a draft to look at. There'll probably be some discussions necessary with Larry and Marianne, of course, during the process.
Great. And Mitchell Bard, no S.
Either way, both Mitchell Bard and Mitchell Bards really don't have anything. The summer is slow. I don't have much to report.
Perfect. The village administrator's report, Larry.
So at the last meeting, you would probably recall a resolution related to a consolidated funding application with New York State. It related to a pretty large flood control project on Harriman Road and Broadway. That application was submitted on time, and it was a large undertaking. So I just wanted to thank the board for their support for it. We're keeping our fingers crossed, of course, but also thanking Ed Marin, Jim Englishby, Greg Nielsen, Doug Hahn, our engineer, and our grant writer, Fiona Matthew, who is very, very instrumental in putting all of this together. So it's not a simple, couple of click application. It was a pretty extensive application. So we'll see what happens.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Clerk treasurer's report.
Nothing further tonight. Thank you.
Village attorney's report.
None.
Public comment. Action items, Larry?
Nothing that came out specific, except obviously there's work to do on the third-party plan review portion. I know I have to follow up on that, of course.
And I will make a motion to adjourn to vice of council.
Yep.
I have a second. All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
rest of Summer.
Have a
We'll
good-
see you in September.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.